Hi, my name's Ethan Wind. I'm a rising junior at Calhoun High School, and this is a video for the Next Generation Business Network. It's the first video that we have scheduled, and our goal today is to help DECA students around the world kind of grasp how to get to ICDC. And it's something that's not really out there because DECA Plus, online, you might hear something like the Bowtie Goat, or DECA Direct, or you might even ask an officer in your chapter, and you might not get that answer that you want. And what I don't want you to do as a student is to feel discouraged or feel like it's not possible to go and win big because you don't have the resources to understand how to go and acquire that and pursue it. And it's ridiculous to me that anyone would ever give up on their dreams because they can't find the resources that are either paid blocks by DECA or people are they're gatekeeping the answers from you. They're gatekeeping it, because they think they're better than you. But in reality, we're all a team, and everyone here is a network. That's why it's called Next Generation Business Network. Everyone here is together. So I'm here with Olivia Adam and Gabrielle Larson. They went to ICDC 3 times, and on the 3rd time, they won first place for project solutions, business solutions project in the business management and administration career cluster. And today we're kind of looking at some of the general advice for the business management and administration career cluster, and specifically the business solution project. So do you want to introduce yourselves a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Olivia Adam. I'm going to be a freshman at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. And I was in DECA for 3 years, and all 3 years, Gab was my partner, and we had the chance to visit ICDC in Atlanta, Florida, and California.
My name's Gabriella Larson. I'm an upcoming freshman as well, spending my first semester abroad in Seville, Spain. And I was in DECA for 4 years and partners with Olivia for 3. We saw this park in our city that had termites. It was tiny, it needed to be updated, and that was when we came up with the original idea of a playground in honor of Eli. And we immediately got backlash. The park is too big, it'll ruin the view of the beach.
It is taking up too much of the green space.
Why are we honoring victims? Why don't all children get playgrounds? A lot of people had a lot to say about the playground. We were supposed to start construction in September, but actually the council ended up not approving us, so the park didn't start until June because when there was a new city mayor or something, it turned around and they eventually approved it 3-2, which isn't that good of an approval.
Still wild, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot more backlash than we expected, but our whole team kind of persevered through, kept pushing, kept going to city council meetings and lobbying and trying to get this park to pass, trying to change people's minds. And at the end of the day, the playground is standing there, so all the people that had negative things to say about it doesn't really matter anymore. But it is hard in the moment to be a part of something that's getting a lot of backlash and hate. That's just human nature. You take things to heart. So it's just important that if you're passionate about something, to put that above anyone else's feelings.
Business administration and management events, and your event specifically, the project management and business solution category, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. You have to build stuff. You got to plan the events. You got to coordinate. You got to make sure you write your manual. You got to make sure you do your oral presentation. You got to take your trip to DECA, ICDC. But what I feel like is important for students to understand is the reward that kind of comes with that type of effort. So what would you tell a student who is considering the benefits / the challenges of the PMBS category?
That was a great way to honestly introduce it. It has so much work because you have to go and you have to do something real. You actually have to do something with the plan that you're given, and you have to plan that out. But when you see the reward in the end and the impact that you can directly see that you and your teammate made, that is unlike anything I've ever experienced. Being able to see the park build just a few months ago and seeing all the kids playing on it every single day when I drive by, that will always stick with me forever. And so yes, it may be really hard work to go and I don't know if you're fundraising, if you're trying to make an impact on your community, if you're trying to teach younger students about any diverse topic, but either way, you know that by putting your energy in, you are feeding yourself with energy because of how impactful it can be. That's what
And
I would say about that.
I agree with Olivia. One of the things that we kept telling ourselves at ICDC going into final rounds was, even if we don't come out of this with glass, like, we have a park at home to come back to. So that's what's like amazing about chapter projects, is you can see an actual physical thing that you've done rather than like the hypothetical papers. So I think that that's just worth the challenge. We are with a foundation called the Eli Hart Memorial Foundation, which was started to honor a little 6-year-old boy in our local community here at Mount Minnesota. He was within the CPS system. He struggled through foster care and eventually lost his life to his own mother in May of 2022. With the community being like so upset by this death, and just because it was a really like public thing and was very well known, everyone wanted to support in some way, but there was like nothing to put their energy or support towards. So this foundation was created for him and to raise money for a playground in his honor in the center of our little town of Mound.
If you're a student watching this, you're probably asking, or you're asking yourself, you know, where do I even really start with all this? Because there's the events, there's the planning, you know, there's the donation, sponsorship, merchandise, managing the fund. So let's just start with something that's more broad. How do you kind of stay connected for deadlines, tasks, and meetings?
I would say I would attribute our connection a lot to the adults that we partnered with. I feel like they really took charge in like making sure everything was on a timely deadline, but they also let us like collaborate with them in creative ways and put our input in just as much as theirs, which was really cool to be like treated equally and have just as much as of an impact in the foundation as them. But I think just because they had more experience with things like this, they were really good at like the time management aspects, making sure that we would meet, whether it was to get dinner, just have a meeting with each other, or text or FaceTime. Like, they were really good at helping us stay on track, and their lessons from that definitely taught me lessons about like time management. So I'm really grateful for them to teach me that lesson.
And Olivia, what advice would you give when it comes to the donation, sponsorship, merchandise, and managing funds? Because I understand that you guys started, I think it was called a 501. Gabriella told me
It's a 501c3. We so because of the our age at the time, we both were not 18 years old, so we actually weren't able to directly hold that sufficient amount of funds. So the funds would be given then to the primary founder that would then keep track of the accounts, where they would make sure, hey, we're here. But within each of the events, there's also its own tracking of funds. You've got to sell tickets for certain events that we held. You've got to make sure that you're not spending more money than you're going to fundraise, because you need to make a profit, obviously. And so keeping track of those is what I think is the most difficult part. Another piece of advice that I'd give if somebody is going to try and raise a large sum of money is you need to be either providing some type of little incentive, or you need to be holding an event. The one event for us that raised around $80,000 was a wine event where people would come and they would taste local wines from around the community, which were donated by the wineries. And they could get like artisan pizza while they were there. There was live music, silent auction, and the live auction was the largest part. Just getting people who are willing to donate things that you can then sell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
A little bit. And also just having like ticket sales. Like, each of those tickets was $70. So when you think about 200 people coming, that's a lot of money. So selling tickets like that and selling things for an incentive is where I think all fundraising needs to be done. Yes.
I think that a common pitfall for some of these type of events is thinking too small when it comes to what you can produce and what you can sell. And as you just said, you raised $80,000 in one singular event. So I think people coming away from this should kind of think about what mental ceiling, like what limitations they're putting on their own events. If you're putting a limitation subconsciously, you might not go and try to put more effort into it so that you can reap all the benefit that comes out of it by
Yeah, for sure.
not only creating something, but being able to present it as well. Would you say that picking a topic or a business solution that really you want to really make sure has a real need, purpose, impact, passion behind it was something that's not only crucial for your success when it came to this project, but for future projects, that there's really a passion and an impact that comes with the project that you're doing, because that's really going to be the selling factor, frankly, for if you want to make a big impact. I mean,
All the time. One of the things you wrote down was, how do you show passion in your writing? And I believe that we don't have to show passion in our writing. And Gab's a better writer than I am, point blank. We know that. But you don't have to show the passion because it's just there. It's like, you don't have to add it. It's like, we are passionate about this because we put all of this work in and we can see the changes. Passion isn't something I believe that can be added. It's already within your project if you are passionate about it.
If you're going to do one of these projects, make sure that it's something that has an impact and it's something real, because you're just not going to get the response that you want. And at the end of it, when you go and you finish your event and you realize why you didn't place, not only have you wasted your time because you didn't do something that's passionate, but now you also didn't get the glass or the thing that you were looking for. So I think it's really important that you do something that actually has an impact because you feel good doing it. And even if you don't win, you still have that impact in your community. Like you said, you still have the playground and you still made a huge difference. It's not, the passion can be faked and then you get the glass. It's you have this passion for a project and the glass is just an attribute. It's a result. It's not the other way around.
For sure.
I feel like some people can be thrown off or overwhelmed, or they might not even understand some of the specific elements of that written guideline. And unfortunately, it is the majority of your grade. It's 60% of your grade. It's 60 out of the 100 points. The other 40 come from the oral presentation that you will give. So were there any part of those written guidelines that threw you off, or what would you tell to someone who is going into this event or similar events in the business management and administration career cluster? What advice would you give to them for the written guidelines, and how should someone approach it?
I mean, first of all, when you're getting into these 20-page papers, it's just so overwhelming to look at the 20 pages and be like, wow, this is a lot of writing. But something I think that's important to remember is a lot of it's going to be graphics because you want your paper to look nice. Your question about the confusing parts of the paper, I know Olivia and I personally utilize the DECA Plus resource a lot because looking at those first, second, and third place examples were extremely helpful for us. Like if there was a section that we had no idea about, we would go into the examples in DECA Plus, look at their sections, see what they wrote about, and see how we could kind of turn that into our paper. So that's why the examples are just super important. And one of the reasons me and Olivia are so excited we won is because now our paper is an example, which is crazy. But yeah, I'd say if you have the access to DECA Plus, that's a huge thing. Or even just finding people in the past who have done your same projects, asking them questions. I feel like it's really important to go around your community. If you don't have DECA Plus, find those people, ask advisors, because there are a lot of confusing sections. Not everyone's going to know everything right away, but that's also why it's so important to start your paper early, because you want to make sure you have enough time to not only write everything, but truly understand and break it down into the different sections. So I guess my biggest piece of advice for writing is to start early, ask for help, and write on a Google Doc before you put it into Canva and make it pretty, because trying to squeeze that in while you're trying to also think of ideas is not for the week. So if you can transfer that over, I'd also recommend that.
If you can finish your project 2 weeks before the deadline of when your paper needs to be submitted, finish your writing, and then you can use those 2 weeks to go just deep dive and do all of the graphic designing at once. I think that's the best way to look at it, so then you can maintain the like brand image per se of the paper and make sure that the graphics through all 20 pages look very alike and are very cohesive within each other.
What did you use for the visual aids, and how much time should be delegated to preparing each section of the presentation? Like, there's the actual words that you're going to say. Like, did you use the flashcards? And then there's the visual aids. Did you maybe print something out from Staples, or did you give them maybe even flyers or little, business cards in the beginning? Please, tell us a little bit about what you did throughout the oral presentation.
If you have a solid project with solid presentation, you can mess up on your presentation because people put so much stress on having the perfect presentation. But Olivia and I's last presentation, the one that got 2 DECA glass, was our worst presentation of any presentation we've probably ever done. We kept messing up our script. It just wasn't the best. Like, we knew we both could have done better, but it was because our project was so solid and our visual aids looked good and everything was in order that our judge could still connect with us and our idea, and we were still able to win. So I think that it's important for all students to know, like, there shouldn't be that much pressure, because at the end of the day, if your project's strong, your presentation can make a comeback, even if it's not the best.
And it's really just a conversation. Like, that's, I think, what messed us up in our last presentation is we weren't able to step outside and see that we were just having a conversation with this woman, and she wanted to converse with us, and we weren't prepared for that. And I definitely think that's what happened. Like,
Yeah.
and so if you can view it as a conversation and you are just talking to somebody, and you can add in your own little snippets and try to make them laugh and like get them to talk to you, ask you questions, I think that's when you've had a successful presentation for sure.
We wrote scripts to like bounce off of ideas, but we never memorized word for word. It kind of switched up every time we presented, and I think that's the best way to do it. I don't think you should memorize word to word.
For this project specifically, we had little 3D replicas of the playground, which were so cute. We got somebody at our school that was really good with the 3D printers to like build us little parts of the playground. So that was part of some of our presentation. We also had, I don't know what you would call it. It's called Port in Place, but it's like the flooring that goes within the playground. So like the rubber mats and stuff. But outside of those, we also did like the paper handout. So our budget was a big paper handout because there's a ton of information there. Obviously, you're breaking down $300,000. Where's that coming from? So breaking all of that down, breaking down the expenses of the playground, all of those different things was in a handout.
We had little pieces from pretty much every event we hosted. Like for our dog days, we made Eli Heart bandanas. So we handed out little bandanas and like a basket just to like visualize the different events we were at so that they could see some of the things that we were selling there or like had going on. And it just made the presentation more personal, probably more interesting.
Would you say that it's essential for your finances to have a sheet for the finances and then unique items are additional or not?
If there's a part of your project that you think that the judge could miss but you get points on it, that should be a handout. That should be something that they can look back and be like, oh yeah, these girls did talk about this. Like, I can give them the points for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just making sure that like your presentation doesn't have really any words on it, like little to no words, but then your handouts are really what can do a little bit more explaining outside of what you're saying to the judge.
When you were presenting, was it a bulletin board, like a phone board, or was it like you had a computer and someone clicked and switched the slides?
Ours was a Canva slideshow.
Always a slideshow. Yeah.
Bulletin boards, just because we don't think we can fit all of our information on those.
Yeah. The other thing that I will always say this, and this might be a hot take, but I believe that with the technology that you have in the 21st century, I don't understand why anyone would still be using foam and fold-out boards. The the detail that me and Gab can add into our, like, we can add news segments, news articles that we were in. We can add videos. We added multiple videos to most of our presentations. Like that, being able to do that is just so like changing to how your entire presentation turns out. And I think that it allows you to better connect with the judge because they're sitting right there looking at your screen while you're talking to them. So and we did have a foam board this year too. We didn't really like present on it, but that gave out like a picture of the park and labeled out like what are those called?
The ADA compliances.
ADA compliance and like characteristics of the park as well.
Yeah.
I think it's for like a visual aid, but I think what a lot of judges have complimented us on is our presentations, and we have only ever done slides.
I think that something that really changed our project a lot was the acronym that me and Gab came up with and added into our project just to make sure that we were making impact across all levels, not only the fundraising level. And so this acronym was ELI, and it stood for the Earn, Learn, and Impact sections of our campaign and partnership with the Eli Hart Foundation. So the Earn objective was the fundraising. The Learn one was to educate people about the impacts of the CPS system and how in the future these need to be changed or combated in order to keep our children safe. And then the last one was Impact, which deals with some City of Mound council issues that we had in order to get this park passed. That was another thing that me and Gab went through after our state competition. After we had realized that we were going to ICDC, I got a call that said that they don't think we were going to pass the park. So there was very, very different sections of impact within our campaign that goes across educating, fundraising, and also having connections with our Mound City Council and speaking to them about why this matters in our community.
I get it.
That went kind of long, but
acronym with like something like that, you definitely should. And none of that's in the rubric, like that's all extra, but
yeah,
judges seem to always like the acronyms, so it's a good little tip.
You have to add extra stuff outside the performance indicators if you want to advance. You have to be able to show your project is different than others. So find any way to do that and add it in.
Okay, so as a student in DECA, what you need to know is the oral presentation is worth 40% of your grade. And what they tell you in the guidelines is to follow the 21st century standard, blah, 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 and the performance indicators. And oh my God, if you never heard these words before and you go to open them up, it's so overwhelming. I mean, they send you to a tab. It's a 30-page document. These go off to 30 different places. The 21st century performance indicators, you might not even know what these things mean, let alone never did it in your life. So I'm very curious, were you guys very, did you hone in? Do you ever take a second to say, here are the performance indicators, or maybe during the presentation in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I have to make sure I define, explain, connect, and add on to these performance indicators, which happens to be the acronym DECA. So if you want to remember it, define, D, E, explain, C, connect, and A, add on or create something unique or special that kind of shows your understanding, but also the connection to your, topic. And so, yeah, how much did you focus on the performance indicators and how did you approach it, or the 21st century skills?
So I think the thing that's cool about papers is the performance indicators probably aren't as big of a deal as like a role play. That's why it's super important to put all your, performance indicators, each one, on like the slideshow based on the different topics you're covering, and I feel like that keeps you on track. And I don't necessarily think if it says like executive summary, I don't think you have to stand there and be like, this is my, like, the executive summary, you don't have to repeat it. As long as they can visually see it and you're explaining it, that's the best way to do presentations. Whereas like in a role play, you actually have to say it to get the point for it. So as long as it's somewhere to keep you on track, or you're explaining it some way and there's just something that they can mark off their sheet, like they covered this, then I think you're good to go.
Okay. Picking the right project for you is something that's extremely important, because if you pick something that you're not actually passionate about when it comes to writing and doing the research and trying to learn all the terms, the performance indicators, the events, you're not going to feel good doing it. And if you win or don't win, you're still not going to really have that deep connection to it. And as I mentioned earlier, the deep connection actually allows you to win, in my opinion, the ICDC event. And it's not the other way around, where you win the ICDC event because you forged your connection to the thing. And I feel like picking the right event is so important, something that you actually connect with. So whether that's, you want to look at the career cluster, see which ones you're interested in, but as you said, as the people who are watching this, you're most likely interested in the business management and administration career cluster. But there's multiple different sub-events in that career cluster. So, Gabriella, how should a student kind of decide on picking an event so that it kind of aligns with what they want to do and allows them to make that impact?
So let's say you're new to DECA, you see 50 plus events posted, and you're just completely overwhelmed because you're like, I don't know what event to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. I think the first important thing is to have an idea about a project. You have to figure out if you want a 10 or 20 page. You have your idea done, great. I think one of the most important things you could do is put your project into a category that is unexpected. Because when you think of business solutions, it's going to be a bunch of people talking about businesses, local businesses, small businesses, problems like that. Your mind doesn't really go to a nonprofit foundation. And so I think finding little ways into categories that you're not the cut print for is amazing for you. I know Olivia, she was in a finance category one time. And when you think of a finance category, it's going to be a bunch of people doing banks and unions and things like that. She was doing financial support, a nonprofit foundation for widows that need financial support. If you can find anything that makes you stand out and different from what the typical people in the category are going to be, you're automatically just going to be remembered more by the judge. So try to find something, even if you don't think it fits into the category. If it can fit in any way, put it into a category that maybe you don't think it belongs in, because it'll just be better for your project.
Mm-hmm. You have to be different in every way possible. And that is the biggest. If someone learns one thing from this, you need to try and make your project different in any way possible. If someone tells you they're doing, this cool idea, don't do that idea, because that means maybe 10 other people thought of the same thing. You have to be different and you have to be creative in your own way.
Through all this process, the presentations, the writing, the ICDC, years on years on years, what is the biggest lesson that you took from this? And I'm going to ask Olivia to go first.
Yeah, of course. I think the biggest lesson that I learned that I will take into the rest of my life for sure is the overall just impact of community. The community impact that we saw throughout this, and how the community is willing to support you and how you're willing to support them. The way that just goes both ways is just mind blowing, my bad. But it's just crazy to see how much support and how much that can mean to somebody, and how much it can change the world. If you are in a strong community and you have strong people around you that are there to support you, that agree with your ideas and ideals, you can change and you can make the world a better place with a strong community. That's what. Yeah.
Since Olivia kind of talked about this year's project, I'm just gonna go on my whole 4 years of DECA experience. I would say if you're on the bridge of should I join DECA, should I not, DECA is what single-handedly gave me the most public speaking or just speaking in general confidence. The confidence from freshman me talking to a judge all the way up till senior year, it taught me so much about the business world, taught me how to network with people all across the country when we would do pin trading at ICDC. It gave me so much confidence, and I mean, that attributed to even my senior year when I had the courage to be my senior class speaker. Had I not done DECA, I don't think I would have ever done that. So I think it helps you grow as a person, and it sounds so, you could say cliche, but it honestly has impacted me so heavily, and I would recommend any high school student with the opportunity to do DECA to definitely do it.
100% agree.